The Vasyl Semenovych Stus was a Ukrainian poet and publicist, one of the most active members of Ukrainian dissident movement. For his political convictions, his works were banned by the Soviet regime and he spent 23 years in detention. On November 26, 2005, he was posthumously given the title Hero of Ukraine by order of the state. Biography. The Vasyl Stus was born on January 6, 1938 into a peasant family in the village of Yakudza, Hyson Raion, Vinnytsia Oblast, Ukrainian SSR. Next year, his parents Semyon Demyanovich and Irina Yakovna moved to the city of Stalino. The children joined them 1 year later. Vasyl first encountered the Ukrainian language and poetry from his mother, who sang him Ukrainian folk songs. After the secondary school, Vasyl Stus entered the Department of History and Literature of the Pedagogical Institute in Stalino. In 1959 he graduated from the institute with honors. Following graduation, Stus briefly worked as a high school teacher of Ukrainian language and literature in Tauzhnya village of Kirovohrad Oblast, and then was conscripted to the Soviet Army for 2 years. During the study and military service in the Ural Mountains, he started to write poetry and translated into Ukrainian more than 100 verses by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and Rainer Maria Rilke. The original copies of his translations were later confiscated by KGB and they were lost. After the military service, Vasyl Stus worked as an editor in the newspaper Sotsialistyczny Donbas in 1960 to 1963. In 1963, he entered a doctoral program at the Shevchenko Institute of Literature of Ukrainian Academy of Sciences in Kiev. At the same time he published his selected poetry. In 1965 Stus has got married. His son, Dmytro, was born in 1966. On September 4, 1965, during the premiere of The Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors movie in Kiev's Ukrainian cinema, the Vasyl Stus took part in a protest against arrests of Ukrainian intelligentsia. For the protest participation on September 20, he was expelled from the institute and later lost his job at the State Historical Archive. He then worked in a few places as a building constructor, a fireman, and an engineer, continuing his intensive work on poetry. In 1965 he submitted his first book Circulation for publishing, but it was rejected due to discrepancy with Soviet ideology and artistic style. His next poetry book, Winter Trees, was also rejected, regardless of positive reviews from a poet Ivan Drak and a critic Eugene Adelje. The book was published in 1970 in Belgium. On January 12, 1972, Stus was arrested for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. He served a 5-year sentence in a labor camp, and 2 more in exile in the Magadan Oblast. In August 1979, having finished his sentence, he returned to Kiev and worked in a foundry. He spoke out in defense of members of the Ukrainian Helsinki group. Stus himself joined the UHG in October 1979. In Kiev I learned that people close to the Helsinki group were being repressed in the most flagrant manner. This at least had been the case in the trials of Ovsienko, Horbal, Lytvin, and they were soon to deal similarly with Chornovil and Rozumny. I didn't want that kind of Kiev. Seeing that the group had been left rudderless, I joined it because I couldn't do otherwise. When life is taken away, I had no need of pitiful crumbs. Psychologically I understood that the prison gates had already opened for me and that any day now they would close behind me, and close for a long time. But what was I supposed to do? Ukrainians were not able to leave the country, and anyway I didn't particularly want to go beyond those borders, since who then, here, in Great Ukraine, would become the voice of indignation and protest? This was my fate, and you don't choose your fate. You accept it, whatever that fate may be, and when you don't accept it, it takes you by force. However, I had no intention of bowing my head down, whatever happened. Behind me was Ukraine, my oppressed people, whose honor I had to defend or perish. On the 14th of May 1980, prior to the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow, he was arrested and received a 10-year sentence for anti-Soviet activity. The later influential Viktor Medvedchuk defended poet Stus during this trial in 1980. In the closing speech from the defense, Medvedchuk stated all of Stus' crimes deserved punishment. He also told the court to make sure that the defendant fulfilled his daily norm at the factory where he worked. At the time, despite alleged serious stomach problems, the Vasyl Stus died after he declared hunger strike on September 4, 1985 in a Soviet forced labor camp for political prisoners Perm 36 near the village of Kuchino, Perm Oblast, Russian SFSR, where he had been transferred in November 1980. Danilo Shumak reported that the commandant, a certain Marj Duravkov, committed suicide after the death of Vasyl Stus in the Kuchino camp. Out of 56 inmates kept there between 1980 and 1987, 8 died, including 4 members of the Ukrainian Helsinki group. Legacy. In 1985, an international committee of scholars, writers, and poets nominated Stus as a candidate for the 1986 Nobel Prize in Literature, but he died before the nomination materialized. He was nominated by German writer Heinrich Böll, who publicly stated that he expected Stus to win the prestigious prize. On the 19th of November 1989, the remains of Vasyl Stus, Oleg Sataiki and Yuri Lydvan were brought back to Kyiv and reburied at the Baikov Cemetery in a ceremony attended by more than 30,000 people. In January 1989, the first non-governmental Vasyl Stus prizes were awarded for talent and courage. This prize was set up by the Ukrainian Association of the Independent Creative Intelligentsia, and is awarded every year on the poet's date of birth in Lviv. In 1993, Stus was posthumously awarded the Taras Shevchenko State Prize for Literature. On January 8, 2008, the National Bank of Ukraine issued a commemorative coin dedicated to Vasyl Stus, and on January 25, 2008, Ukroshta issued a stamp in his memory. In December 2008, a group of current and former students of the Donetsk National University sent an appeal to the Minister of Education, Ivan Vakarchuk, asking that the university be named after one of its alumni, Vasyl Stus. The minister supported the initiative and approached the rector of the university with a request to discuss the issue among staff and at the Academic Council. On February 17, 2009, 62 out of 63 members of the university's Academic Council voted against renaming the university to Vasyl Stus Volodymyr Dejtia. 63 voted for not changing the name of the institute. On February 13, 2009, representatives of the university's students voted in the same fashion. After it was taken over by gunmen, the university removed its commemorative plaque of Stus in 2015. The Donetsk National University, which has now relocated to Vinnytsia, has been named after Stus. The new name was approved by 75 votes out of 105 on June 10, 2016. Stus is highly regarded among intellectuals in Ukraine. Awards. Antonovich Prize.